Okay, hopefully you guys can hear me okay over the air conditioner in the background there. I figured I would get this thing into the Hindi lathe and just kind of get a feel for how consistent the helix is on this thing. And while I was at it, I also came to the realization that I am an idiot. More on that in a minute, but before I get to that part, let's fire up the lathe here, and I'm just going to kind of watch this thing kind of, kind of do that number, just kind of get a feel for how close to a consistent helix I've got here. And of course it works better if the thing's in gear. Alright. Now hopefully this will show up on the video. It feels pretty consistent on depth through here, but as you probably could see, as I go through here, this pin is kind of doing this number a little bit. So that's definitely not a good thing right there. Now, for the whole thing, for the reason of why I'm an idiot, watch this. Two people had asked me, why don't I just use the Hindi lathe and cut this helix? Well, I swore this lathe couldn't do it. And interestingly enough, it'll actually cut this helix if you engage the half nuts and not the carriage feed. Let's try this again. So, for all intents and purposes, you could easily say that I did all of that work for nothing. But had I only had the Logan lathe, I couldn't have done this anyways. I would have had to have done it, manually, or geared the dividing head to the x-axis on the mill. I could still spend a little bit more time cleaning up the helix on this and salvaging it, which maybe I will. I'm not sure. I'm sure some of you out there probably feel the same way I do. You just can't bear to throw away work that you've already performed, even though it's probably the smart thing to do. And I've always been like that my entire life. So right now it's kind of hard for me to justify chucking this, as pitching it, throwing it away, and making a basically using this as a guide for what I really want, and making a proper version of it on the Hindi, and a matching hob, so that I can more easily cut the worm wheel that I need. Now that was Mr. Fabricablin's suggestion, and it took me a little bit to put it together, and then it finally dawned on me, yeah, people hob worm wheels all the time with pretty decent success rate. So anyways, where I'm at right now is I'm probably going to keep going ahead with this one, even though it's probably illogical, and do one of two things. Let me dig these guys out here real quick. Seeing as I know darn good and well that this is pretty poor, I might just... This is 2 3/4 of an inch in diameter. This is 2.23 in diameter. I'm contemplating possibly just using these as the cutters to make the worm wheel on this. I haven't decided for sure yet, but this will actually cut a little bit wider than the outboard section of this, so it'll let me get down a little bit further into the meat of this thread pitch, if you want to call it. Anyways, that's one possible option, is going with something like this. And of course, I can always angle it a couple different ways if that makes me feel better about the whole situation. Or I also have this guy that I've built and never actually used. The only catch with this is it's only currently set up for 1/4 inch high-speed steel, but it's the perfect diameter to cut to the depth that I want to match this worm gear. So anyways, simply because it's quicker and easier, I am leaning towards using these guys, because this is going to be, the whole thing is going to be garbage at the end of the day anyways. And right now, more than anything, I just want to get something on the planer that's functional, that will drive the table back and forth. I think it'll be quicker and easier to continue on with this project, even though it's a train wreck, but it's my train wreck. So I can learn from this. I can do better the next time when it matters more, because one of these days, eventually I'm going to have to go and get a piece of brass or bronze or whatever for the actual worm wheel, if this is going to become a long-term thing. Plus, right off the bat, I'm planning on driving this planer with a 1 horsepower motor and a 17-tooth worm wheel. So when I go to something with more horsepower, I'm going to want a different worm wheel with less teeth, so that I can get a slightly higher input RPM on the planer. So I'm going to be redoing this again in the future anyway, so it's kind of irrelevant to an extent. But anyways, this is a hobbyist channel. This is what we do. We make mistakes. So I actually started to upload a video. Well, actually, I uploaded the video because I was, after talking to DJ about this whole thing of being able to thread, 1.5 per inch, I got to thinking, man, that sounds like it should work. So I come out here to the Hindi lathe, and I set everything up on the lathe to cut 1.5 thread per inch. Well, unfortunately, I engaged my carriage feed, not my half nuts. Didn't work, obviously. So then I set it up to do 13 threads per inch. And there again, engage the carriage feed. Clearly that didn't work. Went and made a video of the whole silly thing. I actually took the cover off of the gears to see if there was a gearing issue. Of course, there wasn't. 12 minutes after I uploaded the video, I caught it just before anybody watched it. I was like, oh, I'm a dumbass. I didn't engage the half nuts. Made all the difference in the world. So anyways, what can I say, you know? Anyways, enough rambling. This is silly to keep rambling on about it. This is probably the direction I'm going to keep going. I'm going to probably get this down to 3.6 or 3.5. I can't remember what it was. And see if I can get it set up to do 17 teeth on the outside diameter of it on the mill one of these upcoming days. So anyways, I just wanted to give you guys an update, and I will catch up with you later.